It's really your responsibility as the manager to go the extra mile and make sure that you're asking your team what's needed. Make sure you're clearly communicating to your team what's needed and staying on top of and following up with when needed to make sure that you have what you need for the work to get done and they have the clear communication and idea of what they're supposed to be doing and when. But having that well defined process in place allows you to stay in contact and apprised of what's going on without micromanaging or over explaining or effectively standing over their shoulder. Because I'm sure we've all had bosses who have done that. And speaking from experience, I didn't care for it much. Hi there, friend, and welcome to the Design Your Happiness podcast, where we work to live, not live to work, and the financial gains and well-earned free time of the lives and careers or business we've designed have taken the place of those late work nights, stressful, all too short weekends, and feelings of just getting by. I'm Rebecca Hayes, a corporate girl who recently decided to branch into entrepreneurship because what I really enjoy is helping others define their own path. And for me, that comes at the intersection of the life you want, the career or business you enjoy, and the money to make it possible. And that's where Design Your Happiness comes in. So let's work together to reclaim your finances, reimagine your life and career or business, and redesign your happiness so you have the confidence, energy, and concrete strategies to build the life of your dreams. Are you in? Hi there, friend. I'm so glad you're here tuning in for another episode of Design Your Happiness. Today, we're going to be getting into a topic that I think is really important for everyone to be successful in their career or businesses. But we're going to be adding the lens today for managers or business owners because I think we can all agree that the work environment or culture that we're working in starts with those leading. So, we're going to be getting into what intentional communication is, why it's important, how you can start building intentional communication into your everyday managing of people or teams. And then I'm going to close out with my script or method that you are welcome to take to start more clearly, intentionally, and effectively communicating with your people. Because what I hope to help all of us do is have successful careers or businesses without sacrificing all of our time, energy, and dreams beyond the office walls. I spent many years working for and with other people, and I realized that it's up to all of us to come together and create a supportive work environment that allows us all to thrive. Now that you know where I'm coming from, let's go ahead and dive right on in. So, communication is one of the biggest barriers to effective management. And that barrier can grow even greater when we are managing people and teams remotely. I mean, just think about for a minute whether you are currently a boss or you work for someone, how many times have you been utterly frustrated by being asked to do something, and then later, when you turn it in or submit for review, being told that it's not what was asked for, that it doesn't meet the need, or that you need to go back and do it again because something wasn't included. And in all likelihood, that something was probably not communicated the first time around. That's very clearly a failure of communication between both parties, if we're being completely honest. The person who was asking for the work, the leader in that situation, was obviously not very clear in what they had asked for, or did not fully understand what they wanted when they were asking. And then consequently, the person who was receiving the instruction, the person actually doing the work, didn't understand what was needed. and therefore created something that didn't fit the purpose, right? It wasn't useful after it was created, even though they spent their time working hard and diligently to give what was asked. This breakdown in communication creates a strain on the team going forward, especially because both parties will then feel like they need to make up for that. And that usually results in managers or leaders generally micromanaging and overexplaining. And then that makes the recipient or the teammate or worker feeling like they're not very good at their job. It kind of dampens their spirit and leads to them not necessarily wanting to perform at their best because they're frustrated. They don't feel valued. And the team and the work that they're producing just continues to get worse. What if we could stop that from happening, right? What if we could get that before it even starts, before we even instill those seeds of doubt or frustration? I think we can. Communicating effectively is a challenge in everything, but it's so important in business and our careers to be intentional in the way that we choose to communicate. And so naturally, you may be wondering, what is intentional communication? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Intentional communication centers around being thoughtful. It's having a reason behind the communication and a clear direction for the result of the communication. And by that I mean the communication should prompt a specific action. We shouldn't be saying things just to say them, not talking to hear ourselves speak, but having a clear idea of what it is we need or want and how we need or want that to be done, and ideally when. For example, as a manager, I shouldn't ask you to simply do this specific work and give you no further instructions. I shouldn't just say, hey, I need you to go put this together. That should not be the extent of my communication to you as your manager. I should be able to provide what I need you to be done, and then a reason why it's needed, for what purpose it's going to be used, or something to help you understand as the person who is receiving the instruction, to have a better idea of what is going to make that useful once you dedicate your hard work and time to doing it. What makes it useful to whoever is going to receive it for whatever purpose it's going to be used for. It's generally this lack of understanding that results from bad communication, and it makes everyone's workday harder and has a lot of us reviewing work that was done perfectly well, just wasn't suitable for what was actually needed. Can you relate? Whether you're the manager or the person who's been doing the work, I bet we all have some stories here. And that's what makes this intentional, effective communication so important, right? We want to inspire and encourage our teams to do their best work and to have some autonomy and control over when and how they're doing that work. But if we're not effectively communicating and intentionally communicating, it's not going to happen. And so today we're going to focus on manager communication, right? Being the person in the leading position and how you communicate with your team. But the truth is that intentional communication is needed by everyone. But that culture or that environment that creates that willingness to speak up by everyone involved generally starts with a manager or boss or leader. So, with that in mind, let's dive into what we can do as managers or leaders to more intentionally and effectively communicate with our team and employees. First things first, we need to have a process in place for that intentional and effective communication. And I don't just mean a specific way that you communicate, a tone or the word choice, although those things are important. I mean an actual process that our team or employees are aware of that allows us to communicate regularly. That's another key piece, regularly. And to do that, you might set up, say, a daily or every other day or weekly touch point, like a call, to catch up with your team and get the rundown on where they're at and where they're able to communicate what they need or any challenges, obstacles, or roadblocks that they may be facing or need to be addressed. This is a more tactical process that allows all parties, managers, and the people that are being managed to air anything of concern or anything of progress, anything that you should be made aware of to the entire team. Now, if you're working in different time zones or on different schedules, a call might not be feasible, and that's totally okay. You might want to use some project management software where you can create boards or assign tasks and have space to communicate when things are ready for review or when things need to be started or when there are certain concerns or issues with a specific task being completed. And then you would have a regular cadence for updating and checking that project management software, and everyone on the team would be aware of how this works and what's expected of them. So, again, regardless of how you're communicating, whether it's directly or through software, everyone is on the same page. Everyone is clear of the process and what's available to them to get things done. And when we're doing this, we want to be conscious of everyone's time that's involved, right? So, this is why it's a very tactical process. If we're going to gather the whole team or if we're going to have them check the project management software, we want to make sure that what is there for them or what information we are providing in that context is useful and relevant to them and their job and what we're asking them to do. And then within all of this process, you need to make sure that your team feels like they can come to you when things aren't working as expected and you've provided a clear process for how they should be communicating that to you. And then keeping in mind when people are new or when you're working out a new piece of the process, because, we can't go from 0 to 100. We have to work it out and figure out what's best for us. And we may be tweaking the process as we go. And that's totally okay. But when those things aren't well defined, or when someone new is added to our team, it's really your responsibility as the manager to go the extra mile and make sure that you're asking your team what's needed. Make sure you're clearly communicating to your team what's needed and staying on top of and following up with when needed to make sure that you have what you need for the work to get done and they have the clear communication and idea of what they're supposed to be doing and when. But having that well defined process in place allows you to stay in contact and apprised of what's going on without micromanaging or over explaining or effectively standing over their shoulder. Because I'm sure we've all had bosses who have done that. And speaking from experience, I didn't care for it much. So I try not to do that as much as possible now as a manager and a leader. And one of the things that's really helped is having this process because the standing over their shoulder tends to make people feel like you don't trust them to get their work done. And there's nothing that's going to damage a working relationship faster than not having that trust built within the team. And if you think that might be part of your problem, that you're lacking that sense of trust, either on your part or their part, or just the team in general doesn't have that trust built, you can go ahead and go back to episode 16 and dive into the importance of building trust and some tactical ways to go about doing that. And I've even included a freebie over there that'll help you even more. But just know that it is a critical piece of effectively managing your team, remote or otherwise. Once you have that well-defined process that allows communication that you need to both feel like you're getting the information and make sure that everything is on track and you know what needs to be done or reviewed or what you need to figure out a different way to do because something's not working. That gives your team the ability to have more autonomy over when and how they're doing the work, so long as it meets the need that you have. And once you've kind of gotten all that stood up, right, there are some other things that we can do as managers to further enhance our intentional communication. So, one of the things that I think is really important for everyone on the team, but only managers can really inspire it, is understanding the preferences, both ours as the leaders and our teams, for conveying information. And that comes from a few different things, but one of the most obvious is understanding the best format for receiving the information. Being able to decide, is a meeting required, or is an email sufficient, or is a post to our project management software enough to convey what needs to be understood. And then making sure that everyone on the team is aware and comfortable using that best format to convey the information so that we don't waste anybody's time, but we still get the points across. That also means considering how everyone likes to work. So you may prefer a conversation for certain topics, and sometimes that's doable. But other times, especially if you have people on the team who are working in different time zones, it may not be possible to do that on a regular basis. So finding ways to accommodate both your preferences for receiving communication and the people who are working for you and when and how they want to work or are able to work so that both of you are comfortable with what's being said and done and how the team is progressing without inhibiting the other person or your team and their ability to provide you with that information is kind of a key piece here. It's all a balancing act. And having this consideration for everyone on the team, especially as a leader, creates a better work environment for all involved, for the entire team, including ourselves, even if we're not always getting the information in the way that we want. And at the end of the day, I think it's the work environment that plays such a big role in how willing everyone on the team is to give their best effort, to feel comfortable in doing their work and where they're working and how they're working. And I think as managers, it's something that we all strive to inspire, that sense of comfort and pride and accomplishment in what we and our teams are doing. So, taking into consideration the preferences helps us all on the team to create that environment or culture, allowing us to work together and feel supported and receive the communication that we need. But that's the key. It all stems from that intentional communication, being thoughtful. Another thing that often doesn't come across in regular communication, but if you're using project management software, it really helps in this case because it's very easy to set clear deadlines within the software within each specific task so that no one overlooks it. We don't forget to say it, and it's very clearly communicated for each piece of work we're requesting. But if you're not using project management software, or if the work that you're doing isn't defined in terms of hard deadlines, because some projects may not have hard deadlines, right? We may have softer deadlines, or we may not quite know the end of how everything is going to be used. And that's okay. Totally understand that. I happened a lot in my professional career. But understanding that people working with you need those clear deadlines to have that autonomy over their schedules and how they're doing the work. They need to understand when this is actually needed. So we have to make sure that we as leaders are communicating very clear deadlines and we're sticking to those even for ourselves. So if somebody turns something into us, it's not very reassuring for them having spent their hard working time to do the work and then get it to us by the deadline and then for us to say, "Oh yeah, but I don't actually need that until next week." That's a very easy way to undermine the trust and the hard work of those who are doing it for you. And so we don't want to force our teams into meeting unrealistic deadlines, especially if they don't have to. Sometimes this comes up when we don't know exactly when we need the specific work product. Again, we don't have that hard deadline. So we want it done sooner rather than later because we don't know exactly when we're going to need it, but we want to have it so that it's there when we need it, right? But not having that clear deadline is our problem as leader. It's not our team's problem as the people doing it. And we shouldn't make it their problem by setting unrealistic deadlines, especially when it's not needed. So we need to think about very strategically reasonable deadlines, whether we have a firm deadline or not. So think about, when do you reasonably need it done by? Or when are you actually going to have time to review it? And another thing that you can think about in terms of deadline is like vacation or time off. If you or someone on your team has vacation scheduled, you can even set some deadlines around that so that you have what you need or your team has what they need and you're still being respectful of that vacation time. But communicating these deadlines and making them doable for our team with some discussion. Because communicating these deadlines and making them doable for our team reinforces that more positive and collaborative work environment, especially when we allow them the autonomy to figure out how and when it gets done, as long as it meets the deadline. It helps us create that positive and collaborative work environment that I feel all of us as managers want to create, even if we don't always know how, because it tends to lead to better results with our teams, what we're able to accomplish, and sometimes we can even reinforce the idea that they can't do their jobs. And that's absolutely not what we're trying to do as managers. We want to motivate, we want to encourage, we want to inspire our teams and people to do what's best while also achieving our goals and objectives. But to inspire our teams, we have to find ways of meeting them where they're at. And in my experience, that all starts with intentional, effective communication. So, with all of that said, right, keeping in mind that we want to be intentional and effective in our communications, that we want to inspire and motivate our people, and we don't want to take away their autonomy, but we do want to make sure that we get to the results that we need to meet our own goals and objectives. Imagine going to your team or employees and saying something like, I need the social media strategy done by next Tuesday so we can start brainstorming the actual social media posts, creating the creatives, and developing the timing of those posts in order to line up with our promotion schedules and continue to inform and inspire our customers and reach even more potential customers. I mean, that didn't take long at all to say. I've been talking about communication for 10 minutes now? And that one sentence there communicated everything that I've been trying to say, and it didn't take very long. But I can bet that anyone on my team or your team would understand exactly what is needed, when and why, so that they can best develop what is needed, in this case, the social media strategy, with enough information and insight to allow us to take the next step. And they get to do it on their own schedule as long as it's done by next Tuesday. Now, that being said, if I had a template or a specific way that I wanted the social media strategy to look, I would also have communicated that. If we had multiple templates, or if I didn't have a template, but I had a very clear vision for how I wanted the finished product to look, I might have said, hey, use the social media strategy template B, because for this purpose, that's what we need, with all the specific information and points included. But putting all of these things together gives everyone a clear idea, and still the team has the autonomy and the leniency to create within the bounds that I've set. So it gives me what I need, gives everybody else on the team what they need. Once they receive the social media strategy, they're very clear on what's next. But it also allows the team to be inspired and make decisions about how they're getting it done. And if there are more things on their plate, then they're able to prioritize on their own everything on their plate based on the deadline that I gave and the level of work that they now know it's going to require because they understand what is needed and what it's going to be used for. So, next time you're assigning tasks or you're strategizing or thinking about how to manage what you need to be done, try using some of these points and maybe even my script for communicating what is needed. My hope is that by being that clear and intentional in the way that you communicate, you're able to inspire and encourage your own team to do their best work while maintaining their own autonomy over how they work. And I think that that's it for today. If you have any questions or further concerns or topics that you want to discuss, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'll be putting my email below, but I want to hear from you. I want to hear what questions you have, what struggles or challenges you have when it comes to managing your teams or managing your work life balance and making it so that you and your teams can thrive and have successful careers or businesses while also enjoying your lives beyond the office. Hopefully, today I was able to inspire just a little bit of that in this method that I use to intentionally communicate with my teams. And best of luck managing yours. Until next time, keep designing your happiness. Hey there, friend. We've made it to the end of another Design Your Happiness episode. And if you're loving what you're hearing and you know someone else who would benefit from hearing it too, please share this episode with them. I can't tell you how much it would mean to me to support even more ambitious, aspiring entrepreneurs like yourself. So send them a text or a quick email with the link, and let's help even more people build the lives and businesses they've been dreaming about. All right, I'll see you next time. Until then, keep designing your happiness.